So welcome to another episode of Mindfully Thrive, the Vision Holder Hangouts. Today, I'm joined by the incredible Cassie Stephens, art educator, author, and creative powerhouse. Casey's built a vibrant online presence while teaching full-time, sharing her dynamic art lessons, sewing her own wardrobe, writing books, and inspiring thousands of educators. She's retired young from teaching, but continues to shape the art education world in bold, colourful ways. In this episode, we dive into how she balanced it all, staying true to her creative vision and turned her passion into a thriving career. So let's get started. Let's join with Casey. So, Casey, welcome to Mindfully Thrive.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
Yeah, these episodes are called the Vision Holder Hangouts. So I'm interviewing and conversation with people that have really inspired me and lit me up over the years, people that have brought me a sense of belief in what's possible. And your journey, your story, I've been following you on Instagram since 2016.
Oh,
But I
wow.
think
Thank
your
you.
work, your blog started a bit before then. Is that right?
Yes, yes.
Can
I
you give us a
started.
bit of a story? Yeah, let us
Oh,
know.
sure, sure. Yeah, I actually had two different times when I attempted blogging. But the time that I got most serious about it and the iteration where it still is today, I don't blog as much, but I try to, once a week, is more of like a place for me to share art teacher things and things that I create. The whole reason behind me starting the blog in 2012 was when I started it. I think that's correct. Was because I was feeling kind of burnt out in a lot of aspects of my life. My work as an art teacher, I'd been doing it at that point for over 10 years. So I was really feeling kind of stale and burnout. And then also just knowing that I needed to be creating. So I felt like if I blogged, and my idea was that if I blog 3 times a week, and if I blog about a new lesson that I was doing and whatever it was that I was creating, and then whatever I was wearing, because at that point, those were my favorite blogs to follow, was the what I wore kind of blog post. I thought that that would maybe inspire me and also hold me accountable. And then the bonus was is that I was able to connect with so many people that way too. That was not my initial intention. My intention was just personal accountability.
Yeah.
So
So 10 years of teaching art in an elementary school, is that right? Before
yes,
you started
so
blogging.
yes,
And so,
kindergarten through fourth grade is what that's what I've always taught. I ultimately ended up teaching for 25 years before retiring a couple of years ago. But yes, that's where I was at that point in time.
so it's very interesting because the idea of adding to your plate, feeling like you're in a state of burnout, is almost contradictory to what we think we should be doing. But it sounds like the burnout for you, which um, happens for me too, is that sense of repetition and not expanding our own growth. Does that make sense? So, like from the teaching perspective, for me, because I'm still an art teacher, 22 years, I think it's been now. Even though we're creating on a day to day with the students, I need to update, I need to change my lessons, I need to be involved in my personal growth aside from just teaching. Is that how you found the need to reach out and do the blogging as a side thing?
Yes, I think the word for it would be I was uninspired,
Yeah.
and it was beginning to affect my lessons and it was beginning to affect my day-to-day teaching. I wasn't feeling it, so to
Yeah.
speak. Not that you have to every day because that alone is exhausting, and
Yeah.
pouring that much into teaching continuously will further burn you out. Like you just cannot continue that. But at the same time, I was just bored, I guess,
Yeah.
in my teaching place. but that I also knew that I couldn't keep just putting all of my energy into teaching because that was taking away from the personal need to create. I kind of called it taking my creative vitamins. I felt
Mm,
like at that point I was experiencing like a void, like an emptiness. Something just didn't feel right. And it is kind of like a vitamin deficiency where you can't really put your finger on it, but you're not quite feeling like yourself. And that was what I was experiencing. And I thought, I think I have to find a way to be creating at this point, because if I'm not going to be able to continue teaching and be the teacher that I want to be for my students. So,
did that feel like you woke up again then in that moment of like dedicating yourself to your blog after hours, after school? It made you feel alive again.
well, it took a minute though,
Yeah,
because for 10 years I had just been like, I don't have time to create because I want to be this amazing teacher for my students. And if I want to be that person for my students, then I can't have fun time and create on my own. I have to devote all my time and energy to teaching, which is
yeah.
not the way you should be, but this is what I thought would make me a better teacher for my students.
I think
So,
that's what we hear as teachers
yeah,
too, though, that we need
yeah.
to be full on and all in and dedicated, you know? And I think we need to kind of change that dialogue, that message.
I agree. I agree. Yeah, I mean, I think it's called toxic positivity for a reason. I
That's
mean, I
it.
don't like labels and putting labels on things,
Mm,
but when I heard that, I understood that. Like I felt that. I thought, yeah, because so many of us, especially with social media, and
yeah,
oftentimes we share what's working and our successes, and we see art teachers doing beautiful lessons or fun and amazing things, and we just want to keep leveling up our own teaching for our students. But you can't keep doing that. You really
uh,
just, it's not a level of expectation that you can continue to meet. So for me, when I decided, okay, I'm going to have to find a balance and I'm going to have to be creating, it was hard because I dedicated 10 years to just teaching. So when it came time to, okay, here's my allotted 15 minutes in the morning of creative time, I didn't know what I wanted to do.
yeah.
I didn't know what I wanted to create. I was kind of at a loss creatively, and that took a little while to kind of get that ball rolling again, to find who I was as a creative person.
So when you started out your blogging, even though it was for you, did you have any idea how, well, I say quick because when I found you, it felt like you had grown, you have a really big following. Did it feel like you knew that, did you have a sense that that's where it was going to go when you started?
No, no, that wasn't my intention. Like I said, my intention was just to share things that were working for me, but mostly self accountability. So, and I didn't really become aware until I would go to art teacher conferences, which I'm getting ready to go to this week.
Oh,
And I
wow.
would, interact with teachers and be like, hey, I did this lesson of yours, or I really enjoy, whatever weird outfit you're wearing. And that's when I realized, oh, I'm actually able to connect with people, which has just been amazing. That's been
Was
an amazing
there,
experience.
I mean, it is amazing. Your journey is just so inspiring. But was there a point along the the journey of blogging where you then felt like that became another full-time job, or you were doing it for your viewers or your audience as opposed to for yourself? Did you ever feel like, how am I going to manage this new adaptation to my life and keep it with the intention that I had, or did you have to allow it to evolve into the other?
That has been tricky, especially when over time I started creating video content, and that added another layer of work to what I was creating. So over time, I did kind of pull back from posting as much. It's definitely not as consistent as it once was. Plus, the social media landscape has changed.
Mm,
That I, discovered Instagram, and I feel like that was a shorter format blogging where you
yeah.
could pump out information a lot faster, but just not as in depth, I felt like. Um, so it did become a little bit, I guess, of a job at times. And when it felt that way, I would start to pull back a little bit
Oh,
because I didn't want it to feel that way. And I
yeah,
also, wasn't getting any sort of monetary rewards for it. So,
yeah,
not that that was the reason I was doing it, but if I was going to pour that much energy into it, I also wanted to have something that I could later on, be proud of, like writing a book or something like that. So,
yeah.
um,
Which it evolved into. But just to, so you went from the blog to Instagram, building up Instagram. Did you ever have support or help behind the scenes with those products, those creations?
no.
Wow.
It's
I
so
mean,
funny. Somebody recently was like, "So does your team do?" And I was like,
yeah.
"There's your team. That's why the posting is irregular. It's all over the place, And that's one thing that I don't want to say I've struggled with, but I've seen other people kind of do it different ways. When you're approaching social media, you think, well, I want this to be my art Instagram, or I want this to be about my teaching blog, and
Mm,
that's great. But for me, I kind of approached it as this is everything that I like. So that's why everything just has my name on it, as far as my blog, my YouTube channel, because I don't want to say you don't know what you're going to get. You pretty much know what you're going to get, but it
yeah.
is going to be a mixed bag of things that I enjoy. So that's kind of been fun too, because as now that I've retired and I share things like the paintings that I'm working on or me going thrifting, I'm finding new friends and new connections that way with a variety of interests. So that's been fun too.
I mean, it definitely shows your authenticity as it evolves, and you can sort of see that it flows because of the way that you flow in your life, and it's not so rigid or set in stone like how you need to post and when you need to post. And I think that's a really important message for people who are doing it as a sideline or something that they're passionate about, but not needing to have all those rules that they say about the algorithms, or if you don't do it a certain way, then you're not going to succeed in it. I feel like you need to own it in the way that's right for you, for it to be consistent, however consistency looks for you. Because you've been very consistent with your creating and your contribution and your content. And
Yeah, I
possibly,
agree. I agree. It's tough. I remember when I very first got on Instagram, and I don't know if maybe 2015, I don't know when it was, maybe 17, I'm not really sure. Anyway, I remember I was like, okay, I want to build up an audience. I want to be good at this. So I took a little online course, like a how to approach Instagram. And I remember like taking notes. And I remember one of the things was post 6 times every day. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's a full-time job. What?
definitely
You know?
crazy among the week, among teaching.
Among teaching and everything else, So, and that landscape's changed too, in that it used to just be snap a photo, write about it, post. Now it feels like, to me anyway, it's you have to make a video, and
Mm,
I always do an editing process and post it that way. And I don't hold myself to, and I used to, so I'm a lot leaner on myself now, but I don't hold myself to any sort of like schedule or you got to get this many posts a day. Mostly because, like you said, the algorithm, I feel like you just kind of have to put a post up there and hope for the best. I
yeah,
have a large following and it's still like they're always turning the dials on me. And it's like, oh, that post just saw like very few views and very few comments. And here it is, you work a long time on it, you think it's going to be great, and it falls flat.
yeah,
So you really just never know. So that's why it helps to just kind of go with what makes you happy, what you're enjoying doing. And like you said, it's the authenticity that I think that people like to see. They like to see the mess ups and the mistakes. They also like to feel like they are engaged in the process. A lot of my posts that do well is when I'm honestly asking people, okay, should I sew my dress like this? Or
yeah.
what do you guys think of that? And that's
The
been really fun
interaction.
too.
People want to
Yeah.
be involved with what's going on and feel part
Right.
of it.
Yeah, and I love it. I totally enjoy that part of it. So,
So let me ask you this: while you were in that phase, because I know we've evolved, but to sort of close that up, where did you come to a sense of it's time to move on, or how do you get stillness in your day when you're teaching and doing your Instagram and building an online presence at the same time? How does stillness show for you? And how has stillness helped you evolve or pivot or move into another direction?
Well, as you know, like the teaching day is chaotic and you never get to sit down. You never get to have a minute to just like not have 5 thoughts and to-do list running through your head. So I think having a designated time where it is quiet and where it is still and you do just to get to sit and be alone in your thoughts is really important. So for me, that's in the morning after I get up, get ready, make my coffee, make breakfast for my husband and feed the cats. I then have some time to myself where I have a gratitude calendar. I'd grab it, but it's on the other side of the room. But it's like a calendar that just has the little squares of the calendar in it. And I draw a little picture of something that happened the previous day that I want to remember, that I'm thankful for. And I draw that picture, color it with little markers, and then write a little journaling on the back. And that having that designated time really helps me to no music, no podcasts are on, just like lost in my thoughts and thinking about that. And then I've also built in time in the morning to paint. So I'm trying to get back to painting, which is what I initially got my degree in college. So I've spent a little bit of time doing that before I go and I walk my neighbor's dog in the morning too. So, but like I said, I'm not teaching right now. If I were teaching, a couple of those things would have to be pushed to the weekend. But just having a little bit of time in the morning helps me out. I read a really great book last year called The Miracle Morning.
Oh, wow.
Um, I can't remember the author's name,
I'll find
but
it and put it in the notes.
yes, I highly recommend it. It's a great, great book, Miracle Morning. And he spoke about having um, he had an acronym for it. I believe it was SAVERS, but it's having silence, affirmation. I know exercise. I'm getting my
Mm.
initial mixed up. Oh, V was for visualization. So having a visualization of what you want your day or your goals to be. E for exercise, even if it is just like going outside for a moment, doing like 10 jumping jacks, whatever it can be. And then the R, I forget what the R was for. I know some of it was for reflecting, so sharing gratitude. So maybe that was what the R was for. But having that kind of like a moment of silence, affirmation, visualization, for me, it was a little bit of journaling also. And even if you can build that into like 15 minutes in the morning before everybody else in the house wakes up, that just really helps to center you. Whereas the rest of your day is kind of like a chaos swirling around you. You at least have that little bit in the morning that's just for you, or even wrap it up in the evening to do the same, kind of end it that way. That
That's
has really helped me.
so. As you then took some time to recognize where your path was heading, you wrote some books. Was that during still teaching, or did the book? Yeah, I think the books were still were happening while you were still teaching, because I remember seeing your first book. I think it was Art Teachering 101. Is that right?
Yes. So I've written
Yeah, I've quite a few by then.
I've written 5 books that I've self-published, but before that, I worked with a publisher.
Okay.
And that was when I was still teaching, but I made sure to work on the books during the summer. I told them
Okay, so you plan to keep working as such during the summer, just on writing.
yes.
That's
And
great.
those books were lesson books. They're available on Amazon. Since I worked with a publisher, that's where they're available where books are sold. But
And the
those books,
ceramics book, I mean, you
yeah,
just went headlong into writing once you started. It felt like, from
yeah,
the viewpoint of your follower,
yes.
you have
Those
this
were those were tough.
energy and you
Yeah.
have this creative ability to just keep pouring it out. It's just fascinating for me, who gets tired at the end of the day and looks forward to the weekend and the holidays to just relax.
I do too. I do too. I spend
You
like
do.
most of my weekends in my pajamas until my husband's like, we got to leave the house and do something. So yes, I get it. Yeah. So the first two books were exhausting. And I remember after I wrote the first book, because it was so photo heavy, I did the
Yeah,
photos and it had 52 clay lessons. So I'm
that's
like
right.
racking my brain, like, oh my gosh. And I'm not, you can't look on Pinterest. That's somebody else's idea. So you're just
Yeah.
like, think, brain, think. And I remember telling my husband, I will never write another book again. This is just too much. And then I decided to write some more. But eventually I decided to self-publish because I wanted to have more ownership with
Mm.
it. And so that's where I am now with that. And that's been a lot of fun too, but it's a massive learning curve. Every single time, it's like I've never written a book before. I'm like, oh wait, how do I do this again? So there's always a lot to it, but it's
And
it's a
it's
lot of
just
fun.
a case of just making the decision and sticking to that decision until you actually finish the last page.
That's the hard part. With Art Teacher in 101, um, I remember laying in bed after working on it at night and just being like, I'm never going to finish this. And I had to like visualize it like a mountain that you're trying to climb. And I was like, okay, today, did I take a step up the mountain? Did I work on the book?
Mm.
Yes. Okay, I'm making progress. And I just had to be content with that because I'm a person who likes to start and finish a project. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, I take forever to work on something, but I don't love that. I want something finished and done so I'm ready to move on to the next big thing.
I'm
So
more about
that's
just ideas, great
yes,
ideas. I have loads of ideas,
yes.
but the execution and then the follow through and then the concluding and closing of it, it's hard.
That is the hardest part. Yeah. I'm a starter. I'm really not great at finishing.
Well, congrats for you. Well done for finishing five already so far.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Also, finishing and retiring, how does that feel in your, like, how does it feel to decide that this is the next right move? Did you feel like it was you had to walk away right now for self-preservation, or was it that there were bigger dreams on the other side? Or because we
It
do
was
get
not
attached to
it
the
was not
kids.
easy. Yeah. Yeah. I'd been at that particular school for 20 years.
Mm.
So it was not easy. And when I would think about it, over the summer, I would be like, okay, is this the year that I'm going to step away from teaching? When I would think about it and talk to my husband about it, I would start to get really emotional and I would start to cry and I'd be like, but I want to do this and I want to try this and I haven't done this with the kids yet. And he would be like, well, I don't think you're ready to go then. I don't think you're ready to leave. Clearly, you're crying, you're upset. So, um, and every year I would contemplate it over the summer and I would decide I can't do it yet. I still have so much that I want to do with my students and so much that I want to try as a teacher.
Mm.
Um, and then it got about a month into my last year teaching, and it just wasn't sitting right. It just felt off. And I remember thinking, I wonder if I should retire. And it was the first time that I didn't get emotional, but it was
Oh.
the first time that I got excited. And I was excited about the things that I wanted to do and the books that I wanted to write and the projects and things I wanted to try. And it was like a shift. And I felt much differently about it and much more content with that choice.
Mm.
So even though it wasn't ideal for me, I stepped away in the middle of the school year. And even
Oh, did
though, yes, I gave them a month's heads up, and that was it. That
I love that because, again, as teachers, we're conditioned to think, oh no, we need to follow things through. We have to work to the time of the school, and sometimes it actually, by contract, you don't need to finish the school year up and you don't need to be, we have to start really waking up to what's right for us and when it's right for us.
exactly. That's exactly it. And that's what I felt like, it was so funny because I was in a place where I was like, okay, this is the decision I want to make. And I went to a Christmas party with a bunch of art teachers and I was kind of sharing with them and my thoughts. And they were like, so you're going to leave after winter break, right? And I said, well, no, I feel like I should finish the year. And they were like, what are you waiting for? if this is your decision, why are you going to push your choice back, 5 to 6 more months? And it was very freeing too, to realize, oh, I'm a grown adult who can
Yeah.
make decisions and decide when I'm ready to go. And so that's what I decided to do.
And also, your persona as an art teacher, how did that sort of sit against now not being that label? I mean, you still are an art teacher, but was it hard also from the perspective of, well, my whole identity online is based on teaching.
Yeah.
How is that going to look when I no longer have that sort of claim, which isn't true because we have
No, no.
25 years behind us, but
Yeah.
it's
I
hard
know
to let go of things.
that's totally true, because I did have, like, I don't want to say an identity crisis, but it was definitely like, who am I now on these platforms?
What is it
And
called? Ego
people,
death or something like,
oh, I've never even heard of it. Oh my gosh.
where we have to shed all those labels.
Yeah, and it's, I mean, even down to like my wardrobe. Everything about me screams art teacher. I don't have like normal clothes. I don't have like normal way of even talking to children. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that part was a little odd, but I mean, I feel like because I still write content for teachers and I still create books for teachers in the classroom and students, and then I still try to share out art lessons when I have the opportunity, because I still get ideas for fun things that I'd like to try with, in a classroom setting. Um, but it is a little odd because I do every now and then get the occasional comment like, I thought you weren't teaching art anymore. And I just think to myself, yeah, but once you're an art teacher,
Always an art
especially after
teacher.
25 years, you're always an art teacher and you
Yeah.
always want more things to share and to give. So I used to respond to those comments, and now I'm just like, I'm,
Yeah.
I'm still an art teacher. I'm just not physically in the classroom.
And in fact, in a way, you're reaching more people and giving more because you're able to free up energy for yourself to go and do these art conferences and speaking and sharing to a wider audience, or almost face to face, that interaction that you can have where people can come and actually see you and share with your energy and what's going on in
Yeah,
those environments. Do you enjoy
exactly.
that aspect?
Yes, I do. I really do. I love being able to chat with other art teachers, especially since day to day it's
Mm,
me working in my house. So
yeah,
that can
social.
get a little lonely. I have started taking a couple of art classes just to help get me out of the house more, so I'm not just talking to my husband and my cats and then the people that I harass at the post office and the grocery store, because I haven't talked to anybody all day. And so I'm just like, da, 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 whenever I see them. So that's been really fun too, to kind of
Mm.
to be a student again has been really fun.
Because I was going to ask, so say, take myself, for example, who dreams about, I don't even want to say retiring, but like moving into another aspect of my life, leaving the classroom behind. What do you feel was the most important um, tool or aspect of making that change? How did you support yourself emotionally going from seeing kids every day that bring us a lot of energy? They keep us feeling young, and the interaction of a school is very special. I think I mean, there's a lot of negative that you hear out there, but my experiences of real joy and positive space for me. It brings me a lot of fun in my life.
Yeah.
So walking away from that feels scary. The idea of not being there anymore doesn't feel safe in a way for me. I wouldn't want to be changing my job and working in an office. I would want to be doing what you're doing and being freelance and being at home and having freedom. But that comes with solitude as well, and a sense of isolation. So if you were preparing me or mentoring me towards, I don't want to say retirement, but leaving, what would your advice be?
Well, definitely have a schedule. I think that was something that, I used to do during the summer because I always had like this big list of things that I wanted to accomplish over the summer. And I would notice that after a few days off from summer, where I would just kind of give myself the freedom to do whatever, would notice it would be like 2 in the afternoon and I was still in my PJs and might have spent a little too much time on my phone, which as it should be, your
Yeah.
summer is your time to relax.
Mm,
But I didn't want to spend 2 months doing that and then look back and think, gee, there were all these things I wanted to do, and now I don't have time to do them. So
mm,
when it came to staying home, I knew that I had to have some sort of schedule. And I thought about it kind of like school, how when I'm teaching, I teach a class, my classes were 30 minutes. So I would know exactly what I was going to do from, 1 to 1:30. I was going to teach first grade, and that was what was going to happen. So I felt like, what if I approach my at home time in a similar manner? Then I could also feel like I might not have finished something, but I did accomplish what it was that was on my agenda at that allotted time. So I every usually in the evening, the day before, I have like a little hour by hour calendar, and I just jot down the plan of what I'm going to do that day. And even if it means I don't finish, like I said, a task of an illustration or whatever, I at least chipped away at it a little bit, and that helps me out quite a bit. But then as far as kind of escaping the solitude of being home, and because it can get a little monotonous for sure. That's why I signed up for a class, which I absolutely love. It's like a 3 hour sculpture class, and it's been really fun. I plan to sign up again. I also go back to my school about once a month and I visit my teacher friends, and we have a nice long lunch together. And that's been a lot of fun for me too. Um, so yeah, but I think that having a schedule, it really does help.
And so how long have you been out of the classroom now?
Oh, I want to say it's maybe 2 years, two
Oh,
and a half, perhaps. Yeah.
wow, that seems, well, from my point of view, it's gone quick.
Yeah.
And so what does the future for Casey look like? What are your hopes for the near future?
Well, I definitely want to finish the series of books that I started, which is on the elements of art. So far, there's 7 elements of art. So far, I only have 2 elements written.
Great. So
Um,
there's
I,
a lot
I
to
got
do.
sidetracked. So I wrote a book about, I'd like to include things that worked in my classroom. So I always referred to paintbrushes as paintbrush ballerinas because you keep them on their toes. So I wrote a
I
paintbrush
use that
ballerina book.
myself
Oh,
with my
good.
kids. Yeah.
Yay. And I had several people reach out and say, I wish you would write a paintbrush ballerina book because I use that concept and I've gotten it from you. So I'd already had that on my little agenda. So I was excited to have that one come out. Currently, I'm working on one that I hope to have finished maybe by the end of the month. That would be optimistic, but about how to properly use scissors and glue because it's the little things that I feel like we spend so much time
Yeah.
just reminding. Um, so then from there, I hope to just continue to create resources for teachers. I would love to create some posters. Definitely, though, more books. Books is where it's at, but I also love creating video content, and that's something I would like to do too. It's tough because, you know, as a creative person like yourself, you have so many different ideas. You just kind of have to prioritize them, and just kind of chip away that
Follow
way.
through.
Yeah.
Follow through.
That's the tough part. That's the tough part, especially if you're your own boss. And I am a very lenient boss. I will be like, you could work on that drawing, or we could go to the thrift store
Yeah.
and which one I'm going to pick. So,
And so
yeah.
when you're writing your books, are you doing all your illustrations on paper and scanning, or are you using digital format to create your artwork?
I use digital. I use
Yeah.
Procreate. Yeah. I used to draw because I love drawing with pencil on paper. There's just nothing that beats that. So I was drawing them and then scanning, taking a photo and redrawing, and it was just taking so long. I thought, let me just attempt to draw straight on the iPad, which there's a big learning curve.
Yeah.
But there's some really great resources out there I've taken some online classes to kind of learn some different
Yeah.
tricks
There are a
too.
lot of good courses for Procreate,
Yes.
especially. I'm in that phase right now, but and so let me ask you, what does thriving mean to you? What does it look like in your life to be thriving? Do you feel like you're thriving right now?
So I think thriving is always striving. As long as you are always like pushing yourself a little bit more, I think that's how you do continue to thrive.
Mm,
When you get a little, and that's how it was with teaching too, when you start to get a little complacent or you're just no longer excited about it, then you get stagnant and then you're not thriving anymore. But I think
yeah.
continuous, like, pushing out your goals and the things you want to achieve a little further continues to help you thrive and just also keeps you inspired and keeps you going.
And if you could go back and tell the younger Casey one thing about her career or creativity, what would you tell her?
Gosh, I would probably say to relax more, to quit pushing yourself too hard. I mean, there were some times after the school-wide art show where I would just exhausted.
Mhm.
I remember going to the doctor because I wasn't feeling well after our school-wide art show, and she was like, "I don't know what you do for a living, but you are completely dehydrated. You're lacking all these vitamins. You're just not taking care of yourself, essentially." And I was like, "Oh, I'm an art teacher," and she was like, "Girl, what kind of this is supposed to be that hard?" And I thought, no, it's really not supposed to be that hard. So
So
just
it's the
don't.
expectations we set on ourselves.
Yes, as long as the kids are having a good time. And
Yeah,
let's be honest, they could have a good time with a box of crayons and a sheet of paper and you just telling jokes and laughing and cutting it up.
yeah,
I think that so often we just put so much stress and pressure on ourselves. A lot of that's, ourselves and some of that's social media, but
yeah,
just go a little easier and enjoy it more.
yeah. Try and have a good time in those difficult times, even just
Yes.
lightening up.
Yes, exactly.
And so, what is the thing you're most grateful for these days, or more than one thing? But where do you feel grateful?
I'm really grateful that I now have the time to do things. And I'm also grateful that as much as I loved teaching, that I don't have that stress, whether that was self-inflicted stress or just day-to-day stress. I would sometimes have 9 classes in a day, and it
Mhm.
was, a lot of prep, as you know, and a lot of just running around.
Yeah.
And I appreciate now having some time to enjoy my lunch and enjoy my coffee and not have like a stomach ache from running around so much. So
Mm,
those are the little things that I enjoy that I'm grateful for.
that's beautiful. Thank you so much for your conversation and your words and being an inspiration to me and continue to be an inspiration to me as an art teacher. Um, it just feels such an honor and a privilege to have been able to chat to you one to
Oh,
one.
thank you. Thank you.